Breaker Crunchers, my name is Lance. You are watching the Couch Crunchers podcast. I am live here with my friend Halloran. Jack, you will know him as Non from Superman. He's also an accomplished author and a former heavyweight champion, right?
Yep, I was there.
Yeah. So how are you doing tonight, Jack?
I'm doing the best I can, whatever they'll let me get away with, you know? What's going on? We can't get away with too much, can we?
No. I think my life has become more busy now with this whole COVID thing than it ever was before, so it's a little nuts.
Just, I guess after the election's over, this will all go away.
Yeah, I hope so. It seems I can't even turn on my TV without something negative going on. It's driving me insane.
It's ridiculous. It's so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through a lot of changes in my life. You know, watched a lot of things. A lot of things happen in life, and this is by far the craziest and the most nonsensical. I mean, you know, to have put this much fear in people over a virus that isn't anywhere near as bad as the AIDS virus was, and some other things that we've been through in our lives. But it's they sure got shut things down and hurt our economy and doing things to a great country that shouldn't be done. But you know, hopefully things will turn around and we'll get our country back where it belongs. And you know, the problem is it didn't happen overnight, you know, and too many things people look the other way and let get into place too long. And now they're paying the consequence for it, and everybody's, you know, jumping up and down, wanting to blame one guy, and far from his fault. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. It's nuts. Like I've never witnessed in my entire life, and just the amount of discourse in the nation, it's just insane. Just from everybody involved, it's crazy.
I mean, this whole racist thing and everything has gotten so out of hand. It's, you know, and people people don't even know the true history of people's history. You know, it's they're getting into this African American thing so much, and they never go back to find out that it was the African people who sold their people to slavery. It wasn't white people. It was the African people who actually sold their own people to white people for slavery. Did you know that? Wasn't I mean, they get into, and if you're born in America, you're an American. I mean, every ethnic group that came into the country went through their own trials and tribulations. The Irish, the Italians, the Jewish, you know. But the difference was when they came to the country, when my forefathers came into America, they wanted to be Americans.
Yeah.
When they stuck their hand up to take the pledge, you know, they had to speak English. And they didn't have any qualms about that. You know, they wanted the freedom that this country had to offer and the opportunities that were here for them. They didn't come into the country to be bled and bleed the country down, you know. They didn't, you know, my grandfathers and them, when they came in this country, they didn't get free cell phones and free education and free this and free that. They worked for everything they got. You know, they were just glad to get here.
My family immigrated from Italy and Argentina, so half of my family's from Italy, the other half from Argentina. And my dad.
Your audio is really bad, my friend.
Now?
Yeah, I mean, when you're speaking, you're breaking up. You can hardly hear you.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. My co-host Tyler just joined us. He was running a little bit late. Let me bring him on real quick. Tyler, I'd like to introduce you to Jack.
Hold it. Who's this guy?
So Tyler is one of our co-hosts with Couch Crunchers. He was running a little bit late tonight. But Jack and I were just talking about our families immigrating into the U.S. and stuff like that. But as I was saying to Jack, my mother's side from Italy, my father's side from Argentina, and when my dad moved here, he became a citizen, and his first job was laying tile in people's homes. And eventually he moved to, got a position in the power plant here, the largest power plant in the world. And
Lance,
yeah.
I can barely hear you, dude.
Yeah, I can. Something's breaking up really. I mean, your voice is like sharp and can't distinguish what you're saying.
Yeah, I can make it out if I listen real close, but
It's kind of hard, isn't it?
sorry about the technical difficulties there.
Is that better?
But
let me just make sure my audio is set up the right way. Is that better?
yes.
Okay. I apologize, guys. It looked like I had a little issue with my gain. As I was saying, my family immigrated.
Yeah.
My family immigrated from Italy and Argentina. And when my dad moved here from Argentina, he got his first job was laying tile in people's homes. And he worked really hard to learn the language and everything like that, and he speaks English probably better than even I do. And eventually got a position with the Palo Verde nuclear plant, which is the largest nuclear plant in the world, and has grown himself, as an immigrant to this successful businessman in this arena. And it just goes to show you how much hard work, when the cards are kind of laid up against you, and how much hard work and diligence and things like that go,
Well, that's what the American dream was. The American dream was to be able to prosper at whatever you did. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to go forward and to make something of yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. My dad did exactly that. Yeah. Well, Jack, Tyler and I are big Superman fans, right? Superman 1 and 2 were some of the first comic book movies of this, comic book adaptations that we had as children. And you played a big role in that, right? You were the non-speaking henchman of General Zod, right?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and you told me a story about specifically, I think in Superman 2, right? About you and Christopher Reeves having a bit of a tussle, from what I heard.
Well, I tell you, everybody takes that thing. So, it's amazing. Here you are working with somebody for 3 years, people, right? Working with each other, very close. You're always going to have some kind of a misunderstanding somewhere along the way.
Right.
And Christopher was, let me say something first. There'll never be another Superman like Christopher Reeve. There'll never be anyone again who will play the part of Superman Clark Kent as well as Christopher did. And you can thank Richard Donner a lot for that. But, and the fact that Christopher listened. But Superman was his very first movie of any magnitude. Prior to Superman, all he did was a couple of plays on Broadway of small parts and soap opera. He wasn't anywhere near in the industry. And so, he was rather naive. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And London had some great restaurants in it. One of them was a restaurant called the San Lorenzo, which were very close friends of mine. It was one of the first Italian restaurants in London. And the guy started out with 8 tables and wound up owning half the block, and it became the paparazzi restaurant in London on Beecham Place. And in the midst of building that to that magnitude, we were doing Superman. So, of course, I invited everybody to go in there to eat dinner and stuff like that, because I lived right down the street at Cadogan Square, and I used to eat my dinner every night. And they were very good friends of mine they were from Italy, and Christopher was in there one night with a bunch of people from the film having dinner, and he was talking about me and my father and my connections with organized crime in New York and the country and a lot of things that he really had no business talking about.
Yeah.
So the owner of the restaurant, being a dear friend of mine, called me on the phone and said, Jack, how well do you know this kid, Christopher Reeve? And I said, well, we work together. I said, doing a picture. He said, well, he's in here saying a lot of things that I don't personally think he should be talking about. Then he told me what he was talking about. And so the next day I went into work and I waited for him to come in. And I took him into a room by ourselves. And I had a conversation with him. And I said, Christopher, how well do you know me? And he said, well, after this, we were working together. And I said, well, what gives you the right to go into a restaurant and talk about my father and my personal life? And, well, there's stories that I heard about you and I've heard you tell other people. So I got rather irate. And I said, next time you mention my name, say Mr. in front of it. And don't you ever talk about my father again. Not a good idea, or else, it's just not a good idea. Trust me when I tell you. So, and we came to an understanding. And as soon as we went out into the hallway where there was a lot of people, he thought he was Superman again. And he started, you can't talk to me that way. And I said, what the hell are you talking? How dare you take me and talk to me about blah, blah. So I grabbed him and I threw him against the wall, and I was just about to smack him. And Richard Donner jumped up in my ear and he said, not in the face, Jack, not in the face. I dropped him on the ground. I laughed like hell, and I looked at him. I said, son, you don't know how lucky you are. And I walked away, and I never thought about it again or ever said anything about it again. And, of course, he watched his P's and Q's after that, and we never had any other confrontation. But, we spoke to each other cordially and everything, and he was a little frightened of being around me after that. And, but it was never, there was never any other conflicts or anything. It was one incident that happened out of 3 years of working. And there were a few people that were there that told him, you don't know how lucky you really are, Sonny boy.
So you effectively terrified Superman.
You see what I'm talking about?
That's all I got from that story.
Everybody falls into that line. Oh my God, he threatened Superman. He backed Superman into a wall. Well, he's Chris was a nice kid, but he was a very naive kid, and he kind of I gotta tell you something. If Christopher would have stood up and said to the Salkinds, no Richard Donner, no me, they would have never let Donner go.
Yeah.
Donner would have done Superman 3, 4, 5, and 6. It would have been an entirely different franchise because Richard Donner and Tom Mankiewicz lived, eat, and slept Superman. And Donner still has something to do with the Superman, with the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Dick's been involved with Superman still to this day. So, he loved that particular comic. And he did a great, brilliant job with it. Superman 1 was Superman the movie was good. 2 I thought was better. Have you ever seen the Donner cut?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to see the Richard Donner cut. You got to come out like 20 odd years later. But because we had shot 85% of the movie and we had to stop. We got hung up doing 2 because we were doing 1 and 2 together.
Yeah.
They got hung up doing 2, and Salkind came to him and said, you got to stop and you got to finish 1 because we have a delivery date to meet. We got to meet people to meet delivery. And they were, so we stopped doing 2 and they rushed and did, I think they were a little bit, in fact, he held them up actually. They were begging him for Superman in the movie, and he said, well, we got a little, cost factors and stuff, and he shook them down, Warner Brothers, for another $15 million. And when they came back, then they gave them the money and they got the film out, and they said to him, then there was talking about Superman 2, and they said, well, maybe we won't distribute 2. And
Really?
that's all he waited for. He said, oh, really? He said, that means I can bring other distributors in to discuss distributing the movie? And they, being, they were a little bit angry at his cockiness and said, yeah. So, and I was there at the screening room. They brought all these other distributors in, and Warner Brothers was there, and Alexander showed them the fight scene that we did for Superman 2. And Warner Brothers couldn't get the rubber bands off their money fast enough. He knew exactly what he was doing, boy. Because we had already done it. We had already shot the fight scene. It was we had shot 85% of the movie. Well, when they brought Mr. Lester on, for a director to put his name on a film, he has to shoot 50% or better of the movie. So they went back and reshot a lot of things. And some of the Donner stuff they kept in because Gene Hackman never came back.
Yeah, he wouldn't because Donner left, right?
Yeah, he didn't come back, and I almost didn't go back, but we really wanted to finish the movie, and so they it was like night and day though, So they had to go back and reshoot a lot of stuff so that Lester could put his name up on the script. But if you ever see the Donner cut, I mean, he didn't. It was sad that he didn't have the end scenes the way he wanted them. But much better movie. If you haven't seen the Donner cut, you got to go out of your way and look at it.
Well, I'm looking at it
tonight.
Now. It's only $5 on Amazon. I'd say that's $5 well spent right there.
Oh yeah. Have you seen the Donner cut?
No, I haven't seen it. I'm just.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking at it to watch it later.
Yeah, you should watch it because it's not as much comedy. It's a lot. I mean, it's good. You'll like it. I guarantee you'll like it. But it's sad that he couldn't finish it the way he wanted it to.
Yeah. What do you think that is with DC and Warner Brothers? Because we've seen that recently too with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. A new director coming in to take, the movies just happen to both have Superman in them.
It's all kinds owed Lester a picture, and they didn't want to pay Donner.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you'll see in the Donner cut is Brando. They cut Brando out of Superman 2 and the footage was already shot, and they had already paid him, but they would have paid him. They would owe them the points. Because Donner had Marlon had points in the movie. So if Marlon was in Superman 2, they would have had to pay him the points. And they didn't want to pay him.
What do you mean points? Like royalties?
Yeah. He owned points in the movie. No, he had a percentage of the movie. That was an original contract. They paid him $4 million in gold, and he had a certain amount of points in the movie. And they were gross points. They weren't, the film industry has amazing accounting problems. They have about 30 definitions of what you call net gross. They tack on the toilet paper and everything else.
Yeah, I was just talking with another one of Steve's friends that he introduced me to, and I won't say his name so I don't get him into trouble. But he was saying that the Screen Actors Guild just took a vote on how royalties were dispersed, and some of these actors that get royalties that play the smaller roles in these films are just making nothing now, pennies, compared to what they used to make.
Well, the whole thing is, I don't know. They'll show films of mine on Netflix and all these streaming deals.
Yeah,
and we should be getting royalties from that, and we're not. And like I did a film called Farewell, My Lovely, which is a brilliant movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but if you haven't, you should. It's a very good film with Robert Mitchum, and it was the first movie I ever did. And it's a great movie, and it must show. I think it's shown on Netflix 1 million times. People have watched it, and we never get a dime for it.
That's a
And I
shame.
called the guild and I said, what's the deal? And they said, well, that's the deal we made with Netflix and for films and then that's a bunch of bull. It's bogus.
Well, I mean, somebody got paid for Netflix to have that.
Certainly, they got paid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting money for Netflix makes money off of their movies, and there's a few movies that I've done that run on Netflix and all the other streaming companies.
Yeah.
And we don't see a dime from it.
So, question for you, Jack. So these actors and actresses that are having their movies are kind of getting, a little screwed by Netflix. Why is it that Netflix is able to pull in some of these bigger names into their movie?
Because what they did was they paid them big money to do the movie. It was a one-check deal. They paid you money to do it, and that's the last time you're going to see. And unless you negotiated the deal in front, you'd have to go in and negotiate the deal in front. And if you didn't do that, there's a lot of actors that are not happy with what's happened with Netflix, and they're not. Netflix weren't the nicest people to work for, because they were really. Not. That's what I was told by several people. I mean, I've never done a film for them, so I can't personally tell you, but I was told by some pretty good actors that, they told me, they said, Jack, if you're going to work for them, if I were knowing me and my temperament, he said you better negotiate it properly, which I would have done,
Yeah.
Had I done a picture for them, but.
Well, I mean, it was definitely smart. Like back in the day, like that wasn't done as much, and Alec Guinness, just looked it up because I knew he made a lot, but he made $80 million off of A New Hope because he contracted a portion of the movie's earnings. Made $80 million. That's from a movie from 1977.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
There's some actors that were pretty smart in that regard.
There's a lot of movies that, when you had points deals, that you deserve to have that. If the movie does really well, I mean, I know Tom Hanks made a fortune from Road to Perdition. I don't think he's ever even voiced how much, because the picture was about a hit guy that no one ever heard of, and a kid. And the movie did $1 billion.
Yeah.
And Tom had points in that movie. I know he did. So there's pictures like that people have made a fortune off of, because the picture did very well. And if you do a movie and you take a lesser salary and you take points instead of, but actors stopped doing that. Guys like Stallone, that's where the movie business turned a corner. Guys, like Schwarzenegger did a picture and wanted this $30 million salary, and they stopped getting points on the back end because the points, old school points, were worth money. The new generation of film of studios, the points didn't mean much because of their accounting of what you call net gross. You understand? I mean, the guy that did Jurassic Park, the author of Jurassic Park,
Crichton.
He had a deal that he had a couple points. He got a salary. He got a large salary, but he had a couple points in the movie. Now, Jurassic Park made a fortune, and he never got a residual check for 2 years. And when he got the check, he framed it. It was for like $79.
Oh my gosh.
His points, you understand? So
that's horrible.
And the funniest story I ever heard was for Airplane, Robert Stack, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went to Robert Stack to play that coke snorting captain in Airplane.
Yeah.
And they offered him $50,000 and 5 points in the movie. And Robert Stack said, "My price is $100,000. And they went back and they offered him $75,000. And he said, "My price is $100,000. So he did the movie. Now you're talking about a very low budget film, right? And he did the film. And 6 months later, what a mistake they made. They were at a Hollywood party, and Bob's a great guy. When he gets a couple of drinks in him, he gets a little boisterous, you know. And the two producers were young guys from the East Coast who had just, I think Airplane was their first movie. And they yelled across the room at Robert Stack, "Boy, aren't you sorry you didn't keep those points from Airplane?" And Robert Stack, being Robert Stack, boasted quite loudly. He said, "Let's talk about those points." He said, "How much has the movie done to date?" And they're over there bragging. Well, it's done already up over $80 million. And the picture only costs like about $1.5 million to do.
Yeah.
So the formula is 2.5 times the cost of the movie. You should be breaking even. Yeah. And Robert Stack said, "Yeah, $80 million." He said, "And how much did that movie cost to do?" And they're bragging that they did it for this such a price. And he said, $80 million, and you're still in the red. So what would I do with my 5 points but wipe my ass with them? You understand?
Yeah.
Because 5 points but a picture that cost that much money and $80 million, they're still in the red. Somebody's stealing a lot of money somewhere.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, the fat cats are getting fatter, and then some of these
like again, you have certain deals that are done, and the distribution deals that studios did were 35, 40 points on the back end, and distribution got money first. So if you're the guy who put up the money for the picture, and the studio's taking 35 or 40% of the gross profit and throwing cost factors in, this, that, and the other thing, and a lot of guys, they were lucky they sold their money back.
Yeah.
Let alone any profit. You understand? So that's what made such a bad name for people saying, "I'm not investing in movies." You get screwed all the time because of some of the deals that were being made. And, so there's a formula for doing movies, which we're putting into play again. It's an old school formula and very simple. If I have a $10 million picture I'm doing, I'm going to put up the $10 million and own the picture front and back. And then I'll put up half of the distribution money and let whatever studio I get to distribute the picture, let them put up the other half and get a 9 to 11% distribution deal. And we do the accounting, not them. And that's an old school wicked of way of doing things because, if people got caught into pre-selling movies. So if I go around the world and I'm pre-selling a movie to get money to make it, you understand? You only have 100 points of a movie. So if I'm selling different territories, which some of them are worth a lot of money, and if I'm selling, the problem was they were selling them for 10 cents on the dollar, and they got the front money. Now you got a bunch of partners, and it comes down at the end of the day when you're whacking it up, you're winding up with nothing. You understand? Yeah. So that's why budgets were ballooned. I mean, to spend $100 million on a movie is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Somebody's stealing a lot of money.
I think they're getting above that.
Say again?
I think they're getting above that. I think the Marvel movies cost way more than that.
They get to 200 million. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a picture done in New Zealand. Peter Jackson's movie.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. The company in Hollywood that originally put that picture together went and borrowed from the studio at 15 above LIBOR.
What's LIBOR?
LIBOR is your interest rate, your natural interest rate.
Okay.
On a loan. They borrowed 15% above LIBOR, $100 million to do Lord of the Rings. And it takes a couple of years before the movie comes out. So all that time in between, you're paying interest and everything else. So, okay. So the movie comes out. The movie does extremely well. but the movie never broke even until it got to $900 million, which is
Insane.
unbelievable. It had to get to 900 million before it broke even. I mean, somebody took a lot of money somewhere. Understand me?
That doesn't
So,
make
I mean,
any sense.
No, makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, I was just looking like because the first that comes to mind as far as expensive movies are concerned are the Marvel movies, and I was interested to see that Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire had a budget of $258 million.
And that's ridiculous. That's absolutely. I mean, they did no more. We did better technology on Superman than they did,
Yeah,
and we didn't do a lot of CGI. Superman. They have a new technology out right now, which is brilliant. Actually, it's absolutely brilliant because you don't have to leave a soundstage to do anything anymore. They're shooting VistaVision on VistaVision. You're shooting right into movies, backgrounds, and stuff. You don't have to go to locations anymore. And I knew that was coming because we did that. When we did Superman, we shot VistaVision on VistaVision. In other words, we had a big 70-foot screen and had pole arms coming out of it and body molds that we laid in, and then they shot us into the movie. You understand? The movie was on the screen behind us, and so when we did the flying shots, that's the reason why they look so brilliant. There was no wires. We were flying under bridges, around buildings, doing the fight scenes. Yeah?
yeah,
It took a long time. It was tedious to do, but it was a brand new breakthrough in technology. And because it was with the Salkinds, the poor guys that brought that technology to light went bankrupt because they bled them out. You understand? They never gave them what they promised to give them, and it was sad because they had that technology back in the 70s when we did Superman. And now it's coming to light now that they're shooting it. And it's brilliant. They're going to use it. I mean, we're building a studio in Nevada, so we're going to be putting it there, and it means that you can shoot anybody. You'll have smaller crews. Your cost factor for the film will be so much less. But what the studios did when they put CGI in and they added, so they said, "Oh, this cost a fortune to do. This cost a fortune to do," and that's a lot of poppycock. You know.
yeah.
We're waiting right now for the deal with AT&T to finish with Warner Brothers, so that we can go and I have a brilliant storyline to bring Christopher Reeve back, and with hologram technology, I can do that. So we can bring Christopher and the three villains back, and we have a brilliant storyline that's going to blow people away. And it's a manner of how we bring them out of prison and change the mindset, and they become cohorts of Superman, and they're fighting with Marvel and all these other aliens coming into Earth and everything. Now Superman has his own army to fight them. You understand?
Oh, that's awesome.
And it will be awesome. Yeah, it's going to be great. And we're going to go back and do it the way we did Superman 1 and 2 without murdering everybody. You know what I'm saying?
When do you expect to have that come out?
Well, we're waiting for now that this pandemic thing started. Nobody's in their offices and everybody's working from home. But as soon as it all settles down and the deal with Warner Brothers finishes with AT&T, we'll go to AT&T and make them a deal that they can't refuse, because Warner's is getting killed by Marvel. And if we did that movie, it would be a huge multi-billion-dollar movie.
Well, just the name with Christopher Reeve returning to the role of Superman.
And if we did it the way we're going to do it, when the fan base sees it, they will go nuts, you know. And of course, Non, the original character of Non was a brilliant scientist that they lobotomized. That was a punishment they gave him. So with this new technology that this other planet comes in and distributes, getting them out of jail, and that they're going to reverse my lobotomy, and I'm going to be saying, "Hey man, what's happening?" You know.
Which is funny you bring that up, Jack. So our friend Steve was telling me when the three of us were talking, he brought up something about you that a lot of the time people meet you in public or something like that and are shocked to hear you speak.
Oh, the first time I did a Comic-Con, I was sitting there and people come up and they looked at me. Oh my God, you can talk! I said, "Wow, I must have done one hell of a job on the film."
They actually thought you were mute.
Yeah. And they, we did. When I went to see Donner, we were doing a picture. Gene Hackman and I were doing a picture, March or Die in Spain, and they brought us up to meet Donner at Shepperton Studios. I mean, Pinewood, for Superman. And Richard and I had a conversation. He said, "Well, how do you feel about playing a mute guy?" And I said, "I really embrace doing that. I want to do that." He said, "Wow." And I said, because Jackie Gleason was a friend of mine, and he did a picture called Gigo, where he won an Oscar for playing a mute guy.
Yeah.
And I said, if I ever had an opportunity to do that, I would embrace it, And Non was the perfect kind of mute guy to play because Terrence was a vicious general, Zod, and Sarah was a man-eater, and somebody had to relate to the kids. It was a big child audience. So I said, I'm going to take this big brutish guy and I'm going to play him like a child, learning how to work his eyes and, learning and being very humble for like a child mannerism.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty well.
Yeah. I remember Non was the character that I kind of gravitated towards when my parents first showed me that movie, because I wasn't alive when it first came out.
Yeah.
And I always felt like he was the funnest. Well,
that's what people come up to me and they said, "My God, your character scared the hell out of me, but I love the character."
Yeah,
because, I had that child mannerism and I related to youth kids.
Yeah.
So I guess I did my job pretty good.
Well, and I think it takes an amazing amount of skill. You're having to convey emotions and things like that with no dialogue.
Yeah, body language and facial expressions. And I really wanted to do that big time, and it worked. It worked pretty well, especially like when I was burning a hole in the side of the truck with the kid next to me.
Yeah.
And it was the first time my eyes were really working, and I was like jumping up and down like a little kid. Oh man, holy cow! Look at this.
Oh, you're giving me the itch to go watch that movie again, Jack. I gotta say, it was my first. How can you say, immersement into that comic book movie thing. It kind of set my. I think I could say Superman kind of set me on the path that I am on now. Superman's always been. I've always been a huge Marvel guy, as you can see from the wall behind me with all my Marvel figures and stuff, but Superman has always been one of my favorite characters, and that movie plays a large role in that.
You got to understand, Superman was the first American superhero.
Yeah.
The comic books. Superman was the very first American superhero, and having it the all-American way and doing all that, and it really played out very well. The fact that he locked people up. And he captured people. He didn't murder everybody and cause, mayhem like that. He resolved situations instead of destroying them.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different kettle of fish, and even the fight scenes with the villains, where he did them in a way that he wasn't trying to kill and destroy anybody.
Yeah.
He was just trying to nullify them.
Plus, I call him our first eco-friendly superhero since he's solar powered. So,
but that was always my issue with Man of Steel, and I know Tyler liked Man of Steel, right, Tyler?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, But that was always my issue with Man of Steel, and I like Henry Cavill in the role, but
Yeah,
the movie was just too dark, in my opinion, for a Superman
very
movie.
dark. And they're very, very dark, and it was sad. It was,
And they
know,
basically did that to match Batman.
yeah, well, that's what they were doing. They were running the wrong competition, though, you know.
Yeah,
And then when they did the movie with Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman all together, you know,
yeah,
that's
Justice
the
League.
movie you're talking about.
Yeah, they did Justice League after. Well,
Yeah.
they did Batman versus Superman and then Justice League.
Yeah,
Superman was a lot more lighthearted in Justice League, though. The he was very. It was a very dark movie for Superman with Batman versus Superman. That was
dark.
That
That
was-
really was dark. Man.
Yeah.
and I did not like the portrayal of Superman in that movie at all. That was one of my biggest qualms about that movie. And it was there was just things that were not characteristics of Superman. You know, like he's in that meeting with all the government officials, and I think they're in the Capitol building, and it blows up, and Superman doesn't do anything really. Like he helps one person get out of the building. Like, you know, I think of Christopher Reeve Superman, and something bad happens, he's immediately going to help everybody as fast as he can.
And that was his whole 9 yards, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's just like when the Daily Planet thing, and he said, "Come on outside, guys." You know, he wanted to get people away from being injured. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think you can look at it too, because you know Marvel has a rival character in Captain America, which you could compare Superman and Captain America, and Marvel took a totally different approach with making it lighthearted, and it just seems like Chris Evans as Captain America is a more relatable character than Henry Cavill as Superman, and that shouldn't be the case. I mean, Captain America has nowhere near the accolades that Superman has, but if Marvel can do it, why is DC so hesitant to do it?
Well, they did because the decision makers. You got to understand something, that the studios have been run by MBA guys. They have no creativity.
Yeah.
They went in there and took a job for a couple of years, took as much money as they could get out of it, and left. They weren't looking down the street. There was no creativity. That's why they're remaking everything.
Yeah.
They
ran out of fresh ideas.
Well, there's things that are offered to them, and they're not even. They have 20-year-old kids reading scripts that don't know what they're reading. You know.
Yeah.
And they proved that point. I'll tell you what they did about 10 years ago. They took a script that was an Oscar-winning picture called Casablanca.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they changed the name of the script, and they changed a couple things inside of it to doctor it up. And they gave that script to the studio, all the studios, and every one of them rejected it.
And it was essentially Casablanca.
Casablanca won the Oscars. It
Yeah.
was a great film, right?
So they gave them the Casablanca script and then changed the name.
They just changed the name of it, and they basically the same script, and they submitted it to get done, and it was rejected by all four majors.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Which brings me to my next question for you. So you started a studio, right? Long Beach Studios.
Well, we started it. We put a lot of time. I mean, it would have been brilliant, but the financial world fell apart.
Oh, so you're not going forward with it?
We never got to build it because we had a great idea, and it would have been a great studio. It was the right location. Everything about it was brilliant. And it just shows you that maybe God sent or something made it not work the way we wanted it to work, because the governor that's in California right now would have killed the film industry. And so we're building it in Nevada, and we're putting a 4 million square foot studio in Nevada, and it will have every bit of technology in film, television, music, streaming, nothing a water body, which there's no water body in LA. They had the one thing down where they did the Titanic in Baja California, and that's gone. So we'll have everything pertaining to movies and entertainment business, period, under one roof. And then we're going to build a smart city right next to it that'll house 25 or 30,000 people so that the employees will only have to go 15 minutes to work.
Oh, that's
Wow.
amazing. So you're going to build a whole little compound type thing, huh?
The industry will move to Nevada, yeah.
And
We have-
I don't doubt it.
Well,
think
we
you
have
may
a
have-
tax bill of 45%, and we're not asking the state to write us a check. It's a tax rateable deal. It's what we bring into the state revenue wise, you know. So it's going to work very well. We're going to give a 7-year work contract to all the technicians and everything, and it's and go back old school as far as people. And like I live in Redondo Beach. If I want to do a movie at Warner Brothers, I got almost a 2-hour ride each way to work because of traffic and stuff. You understand?
Yeah.
And the closest studio to me is MGM in Culver City, and that's an hour by traffic in the morning and coming home at night. So it's ludicrous. You'd have to. If I was going to do a picture at Warner Brothers, I would rent an apartment in Burbank rather than travel 4 hours a day. Travel time. Even if you have a chauffeur driving, it's still a tedious ride. Oops, hold on a minute, guys. It's my family calling me. So, Sissy, hello. These phones don't work. It's terrible. We're having such terrible trouble with cell phones out here.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Let me just call her back, make sure she's not in trouble.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. The cell phone, the mass tower out here is really bad. See, now I'm sitting right here at this spot. I just lost all signal on my phone. If I sit here for a couple minutes, I'll get all bars back.
That's crazy. That's like a little blackout type thing happening.
Yeah, man. It's really nuts. Like I can't. If I go to make this call now, it'll say call impossible, can't be made. There it goes. There goes the bars. There they come. Now it's ringing. It's amazing. And I haven't left. I'm sitting in the same spot, right? I'm doing a show on the computer. Are you all right? Yeah, fine. Okay. Bye. Just want to know if she should feed me.
So is
A
this
caring individual?
Is this studio that you're building in Nevada? Is it Long Beach Studios?
Well, it's the same people involved, but some other investors because this is $1 billion project.
Yeah.
And we're doing two things that's going to be earth-shattering. We're building it out of industrial hemp, which is an amazing material. Yeah. Huh?
Oh, wow. The building, like the walls and stuff, are going to be hemp?
Well, it's industrial hemp. Industrial hemp is stronger than concrete and steel.
Wow.
And here's a good example. If I build a 1,200 square foot home out of industrial hemp, I can build a 1,200 square foot home, 2 bathrooms, 2 beds, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, the whole complete house and everything. I can build in 2 weeks' time for under 20 grand. Yeah.
Wow.
And the temperature inside that place will stay at 69 to 72
because it's insulated.
Wow.
Because of the hemp. It's like zero PC. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Need that in Arizona.
If you build a house with it like in a wet area, it absorbs the moisture, so there's never any mildew or moisture or anything. And if you build, I can build a 30-story building without one drop of steel.
It's insane.
And because it sets so quickly, it's going to revolutionize construction, period, all the way across the board. They're going to be making cars with it, airplanes, and everything.
That's more eco-friendly too, right? Is the process in making that more eco-friendly?
Oh, it's so eco-friendly, it's scary. And you can hit, I'll tell you, they built 2 walls in France one made out of hemp, one made out of concrete. And they hit both walls with 6,000 BTUs of heat, blasting, right?
Wow.
In an hour, the concrete exploded. The hemp only had a singe mark on it. So it's
Wow.
fireproof. So if you're building homes where fire areas are, they'll never burn. They may get
That's
scorched,
amazing.
but they'll never burn. Yeah.
Well,
It's
and with the
amazing
movies you're
material.
filming, with the
Sorry?
movies you're filming, I mean, there's going to be pyrotechnics and things like that involved as well, right? So that's going to
Yeah.
be even better for that. It's less
Oh,
risk.
it's going to be for sound. In other words, what we're going to put in Nevada will be 110. We're looking at about 110 sound stages, all NC25 soundproof, which nobody in the world has. Meaning that you won't hear any vibrations or noises, or there's a lot of times you'd be working on a set and the camera guy will say, "Oops, got to shoot it again because it got a vibration up a truck went by or something. Got a vibration through the camera." You understand? And I could be doing an Oscar performance, and the guy's, "Oops, got to do it again."
Oh no.
So you're saving production money. You're saving, and you save on air conditioning. You save. It's just a amazing material that has been hampered because the concrete business and the steel business came out in the 30s, and they pushed the hemp business away.
Yeah.
But you look at all the Indian teepees and everything, and every time you see an Indian movie, yeah. And these people they're in teepees and it's snowing and all that stuff, and they're not freezing to death because the teepees are made out of hemp.
Wow.
And their clothes are made out of hemp. If you go on Amazon, there's 1,000 products that are made out of hemp now, from makeup all the way across the board.
Oh yeah, it's a whole new industry. It's blowing up.
Yeah, what it's going to do for building is incredible. It's going to
I'm
change
excited
the whole
to see that.
Pardon?
I'm excited to see that.
Oh yeah, no, we will. It'll take us less time to build it. We'll save 60% of the cost factor, and there'll be less accidents.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're putting frames down, and it pours just like concrete, but it sets. You move the frames every 2 days. It sets. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
So it's great. We're so thrilled about this. And it'll be the biggest showcase of a hemp thing built anywhere in the world.
So when do you think that will be completed?
We'll probably start within 90 days, and it'll take 2 years to do.
Amazing.
Did you say where in Nevada it's going to be?
Apex, which is right north of it's north Las Vegas. Apex is about 15 minutes away from downtown Las Vegas.
So maybe when it's all done, Jack, we'll have to come out there and do a live video tour of the facility. What do you think?
Sure, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You're gonna get in line. There'll be a lot of people. I mean, you put a production deal in like that, you're gonna have production companies from all over the world come there. You understand?
Yeah, to check it out.
And the fact is that we're putting the back lots in like they had in old Hollywood, so you can do films from 50,000 all the way up to 50 million, and you won't have to go on location at all.
Wow.
So you'll save a fortune on films, and it's been a peeve of mine for a while, and we put a lot of time into the Long Beach thing, and we had a great, unbelievable business plan, and we had the money to do it. And in 2008, the financial world fell apart. Everything disappeared, And we had one building. It was a Boeing building. It was the Boeing plant, and the building was 1 million square foot. So we were, and the floor was great for us because it was so thick and deep because planes rolled over it.
Yeah,
so
it had to be strong.
Held the vibration. Then we were going to put a sealer on top of that underneath the floors that we were going to build. We would have built NC25 sound stages down there, and we had people all over the world dying to come there. They were just the concept, it was brilliant. Everything was brilliant about it. in between two major airports, and it's just a great idea. And we've put a lot of great jobs in California, and the financial world fell apart. So
Yeah.
we're going to take the same concept, only make it 4 or 5 times bigger, and build it in Nevada.
So are you going to be? Is your company going to be producing films there? Or are you just going to offer
Yeah.
the? Yeah.
No, we're going to build it. Mike, I have a company that's going to build it, and then I have a production company that will pay just like everybody else to rent space in there. It's the place will be like a huge bar mitzvah hall. Everybody that walks on that lot will pay us.
Yeah.
You know.
So do you think that you may possibly adapt your novel that you wrote, The Family Legacy?
Oh, I'm definitely doing that. We're getting ready to do that anyway. We'll probably be in production before the studio is done. The series, we'll do the series there because we're going to do a mini. There's so much information in the novel because I got a couple more books I'm writing, and
Yeah.
and I have a friend of mine who's Charlie Lucky Luciana's son, and he has his father's book, The Last Testament of Luciana. So we're going to and Charlie was my partner, and Charlie, my father and Charlie were partners. In the beginning, you had Charlie Luciana, Frank Costello, Albert Anastasia, and Meyer Lansky, Lucchese, and Joe Banana, the original crew in New York. So what we're going to do is what the book does, it tells the truth about what we're going to tell the truth how the country opened up, and nobody ever talks about in the very beginning. Organized crime was into loan sharking, gambling, and extortion. So if you didn't have money, how could you pay them? So they made sure you went to work. My father controlled all the waterfronts and unions and stuff, and they all the illicit monies that they made, a lot of it they put back into the growth of a country. They invested in insurance companies, they invested in General Electric, Westinghouse, the Sears and Roebuck. They invested money to create jobs for people. So they were involved in the growth of a country, but no one ever talks about that. All they want to talk about is the wham bam thank you man. And they do movies that really, The Godfather was well done because Coppola wrote what he was told to write. And they told a lot of good truth, but not all the truth, but a lot of it. And the movie was huge because of that.
Yeah.
And the first book I wrote goes from my father's death to Kennedy's death, and I tell the truth about the Kennedy assassination. And they just did a movie called The Irishman. Did you ever see that?
I haven't watched it yet. I've been meaning to, but
it's bogus. It's story. I knew Frank Sheeran very well. He was from Philadelphia. I knew Russell Buffalino well, and Russell would turn over in his grave if he saw the movie. And they took advantage of answering questions that everybody's been looking for answers for. So they got Frank Sheeran killing Jimmy Hoffa and killing Joe Gallo, which he never did either. He was a driver for Hoffa. Russell's nephew was Hoffa's lawyer, Billy. So the connections were all there. And, the mystery of whatever happened to Jimmy Hoffa, we're going to tell the truth of where Jimmy Hoffa went, what happened.
I've heard mixed reviews on The Irishman. I've heard some people say how great it is. I think it was nominated for Best Picture. And I've heard from other people that it was just awful, right?
Well, that's because you have Scorsese and there were a lot of brilliant actors in it.
Yeah.
You can't push. Joe Pesci played a hell of a role. De Niro played Hoffa. Pacino played Hoffa. Hoffa was Irish. What are you got an Italian guy playing Jimmy Hoffa? Jimmy was an amazing man. I like Jimmy quite a bit. Jimmy Hoffa would never ask you to do what he couldn't do himself.
Right.
And you got to understand where Hoffa took. If you were a truck driver in the 30s, you were working 18-hour days. You loaded the truck, you unloaded the truck, you worked for peanuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hopper took people like that and made them 6-digit-a-year jobs. They say he robbed the pension fund. There was no pension fund until Jimmy Hoffa came into place. There was no pension fund. There was nothing. There's lawyers today that have quit law to be outside in the sunshine, driving cross country in rigs, because all they do is drop stuff off and pick stuff up. They don't touch anything. They just drive a truck, So the Teamsters, what Hoffa did for the unions and stuff, and why they went after him is because he controlled a major portion of the vote.
Wow.
With the Teamsters. And the Kennedys didn't like that. So, I mean, I knew Jimmy very well, and they said they put him in jail. They said that he stole $8,000 to fix up his house, which is total bullshit, because
And he
Jimmy
was never
didn't
hurting
need-
for money, really, right?
never, ever, ever. And he didn't need to steal a dime, and he built the pension fund. He wouldn't rob from it. And also, if Jimmy wanted something fixed in his house, there were 100 guys that would have done it for nothing. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much he was loved by people.
Well, I think your novel's an interesting story. It's loosely based on your life, right? I mean,
It's
is
my
any of
life
it
as a young man? Yeah.
so none of it is fictionalized. It's all
Well, it's funny. When I wrote the book, I had to sit down with the CIA and the FBI, and a friend of mine from NSA put the meeting together. We went to Hawaii to sit down and talk about it. And they told me that if I wrote the book nonfiction, totally nonfiction, they would never let me produce it, never let me publish it.
yeah, because you don't change your father's name in the book, but you change yours, right?
Change my name, yeah. Well, that was for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's statute of limitations that never die. You understand?
Yeah.
There's certain things that if you're a made individual, and I was a made kid, I don't know if you understand what that is.
I don't understand what that is.
I was a made kid when I was 19 years old. In other words, I was brought into the familia when I was 19 years old. And I took an oath. And you have to perform certain things before they will allow you to do that. So, and I did a lot of things when I was a young kid. And, so I changed the name for reasons. But they told me that if I wrote the thing nonfiction, we changed a little bit. We did what you call fractional,
Yeah.
We changed a little bit to fiction, and they said, well, that's okay because you'll confuse people. And that's all. The government loves confusing people.
They live on it, right?
The Kennedy assassination, I told the truth about. And because there's so much conspiracy theory, around Kennedy's death, and a lot of it is such bullshit. It's time that the public knew. You got to understand something. When they did the one bullet theory, and they sold that, the media sold that to people, that Oswald was the shooter out of a window, and it was a one bullet theory, that the bullet hit Connally and Kennedy. And when you stop and look at the position of the car and the fact that Kennedy's head blew out the back, didn't go in. So if he shot him in the back of his head, and how was he going to shoot him in the throat from the window up there? You understand?
Yeah.
The first shot hit Kennedy came from a cauldron in the side of the street, which has been cemented over by now. And that cauldron was big enough for me to walk from the river to the street, to Dealey Plaza. That's how big it was. And I knew the guy that was down there, and he hit the first shot. He hit Kennedy in the throat. When you see him grab his throat and he falls forward, Connally got shot first. So he fell. Jack fell on top of him. Then he was shot in his lower back that no one ever talked about for 10 years. And the driver of the car, Greer, took the last shot that blew him backwards. And the back of his head blew out. So he was shot 3 times. And Jackie, God bless her, the people say she was trying to scrape his brains off the back of the car. Well, that's bullshit. She was trying to get out of the car because she thought they were killing her next. There were 13 shots fired that day at Dealey Plaza.
And they tried to sell that it was one guy doing it.
One bullet. And when you stop, I don't know, do you know anything about rifles or anything like that?
A little bit.
Okay. Here's a mail order gun. Okay. Mail order. Now,
Yeah.
a rifle, bolt action rifle. Okay. You're shooting a shot of over 1,000 feet. You have variables of wind, a car that's in motion going on a decline. You have trees, signs, people. Okay. And if you're a shooter, you have to arrest your heart down to 60 before you put your finger on the trigger because your pulse is in your trigger, in your finger. Okay. So to say that you shot 3 shots on a bolt action rifle in 28 seconds is total bullshit.
Yeah. You can't load it fast enough.
It never happened. And you couldn't focus. You got, like I said, you have to align everything up. You have to do the variables of the wind, the trees, the motion of the car. There's a lot of variables that you have to take into place. Okay.
Yeah.
You could be the best sniper in the world. And they're facts that you have to put into play. Well, there was a prison right across from the Bird building. And prisoners are looking right inside that cell, in that window. And there were 3 guys there, 2 dark complected guys, which were Cuban, and a 3rd guy. Oswald wasn't even in the building. And I know that for a fact. So
and Oswald, he had no training as far as being a
he was not a sniper. He had a short Army career. And Oswald, let's talk about Oswald. Oswald, his mother was a prostitute in New Orleans, and she was hooked up with a lieutenant for Carlos Marcellus. And Oswald, do you ever see a series called I Led 3 Lives?
No.
It was a television series on television. You can look it up. It was a very good series, I Led 3 Lives, about a guy working for the government. Yeah. And Oswald worked for the Naval Intelligence because there were a lot of gay bars and stuff in New Orleans and Texas. And he would go in there dressed in a uniform with a microphone. And it was not popular to be gay in those period of times, And he would talk to officers that were in a gay bar and shouldn't have been in a gay bar. And he was the material that was turning them over, blackmailing them, yeah. And they married him off to a Russian girl who was in the KGB, and they sent him to Russia. And he kept being moved from one apartment to the next because they bugged all the apartments and he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He kept talking ba-bing, ba-bang, ba-bang, about everything. So they threw him out of Russia. So now he's a throwaway. Yeah. And the guy, George the Mournchild, who was Zapruder's partner, is the one that taught him Russian. And they groomed him for this thing that happened at Dealey Plaza. He was groomed to be the patsy for Dealey Plaza. And when you go through the files of Oswald, when they locked him up, now you're locking up a guy who supposedly shot the president of the United States, right? They did not have one tape of any conversation with him. They had no notes of any conversations with him at all. Okay? Now here's a guy who's supposed to shot the president. And you say, well, how come Hoover wasn't there? Because Hoover was in Dallas. I know he was in Dallas because I was at the Murchison house the night before and I saw him there. And he was the guest of honor.
Yeah.
Okay? So when they said he wasn't there, so they said the FBI didn't get involved because it wasn't a conspiracy. It was a one-man bullet shot deal. Yeah? So when you see Oswald being led out of the police station into the garage when Jack Ruby shot him, yeah, you see the guy that the policeman that was next to him stepped away from him. Because they knew damn right well he was getting killed.
It's insane.
And how did Jack Ruby get into that garage with a gun. They screened everybody. You understand?
Yeah.
And Ruby was a known villain, so why would they just let him walk in there with a pistol? And when the crowd parted, when he had an open shot at Oswald to shoot him. Yeah. So now you have the Warren Commission, and when they were doing the Warren Commission, they went to Ruby, and they sat down, and Jack Ruby said, "Well, I guess you guys want me to tell you about Chicago, because that's where he came from. He was a gangster in Chicago. He wrote numbers there and everything. And somebody got killed in his club, and they sent him to Dallas, Texas. And he opened up a restaurant, and he was a go-between between Cuba and Dallas. He ran back and forth and took messages and arms deals and all that kind of shit. And he had a strip joint in Dallas, and a lot of people went there. And he so he said to the Warren Commission, "I guess you guys want me to tell you about Chicago." They said, No. We don't want to know anything about Chicago. We want to know about what happened here. So he said to them, "You can't talk to me here. You got to move me. We can't talk in this place." He knew damn right well everything was being bugged. And they went to Tulane University, which they did for several other people as well. They had a big cancer research down in Tulane University. They got a needle. They shot him up. 6 months later, Ruby was dead. Like they shot a lot of people up. John Gotti, a lot of people that were never sick a day in their life. A lot of friends that I know that went to jail for organized crime that died there for cancer in jail, and they were never sick a day in their life before they went to jail. So when you put all this stuff surfaced, every 10 years they come up with something more about this so-called one bullet theory and what happened in Dealey Plaza. And here's the kicker of it all. Who was the number one cop in the country when Jack Kennedy got killed?
I don't know.
Brother Bobby was the Attorney General.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And his brother Bobby was his second skin everywhere he went in his career. Okay? And 4 people went to Bobby before Jack went to Dallas, one of them being Adlai Stevenson. You know who Adlai Stevenson was?
No, I don't.
My God, you don't know your history, son. Adlai Stevenson was going to run for president. He's a very well-known politician. Went to Bobby and said, "Do not let your brother go to Texas because the animosity down there is terrible. And you can't let him go down there, especially in an open car." You understand? And Bobby didn't go before. He wasn't there during, and he never went afterwards.
So he knew it was going to happen, essentially.
Sure he did. They knew he was going to die. And you would say, well, why? Jack Kennedy, first of all, was not going to live out his term. He was dying of Addison's disease and a couple other diseases. He had syphilis and a few other things. But he had Addison's disease, which is a deterioration of your lower back. It just eats your body up. And they shot him up every day. He wasn't going to live his presidency out. So his family would rather see him die the way he died than have him die of a disease. And
why?
You would say, that's awful cold, man. Jesus, why? But then look at what Joe Kennedy did to his daughter. Do you know that?
No.
He lobotomized his own daughter.
I've never heard that story.
His daughter suffered from ADD. And she used to break out in these crazy rash moments because she suffered from ADD before any doctors had any dealings with ADD or any way of controlling it. And instead of having her make a fool of the family, her father had her lobotomized, and she sat in an institution staring out the window for 70 years of her life.
Wow.
Insane. How did you do that to your daughter?
That's pretty cold, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it sounds like a lot of cult. Like, first of all, Bobby.
Joe Kennedy was not the nicest guy in the world. Trust me.
Yeah.
And,
well, Bobby
and
just essentially let his brother get shot.
Well, Bobby was an ass himself. He was no different, worse than his father. But his father was really bad. His father controlled Bobby, and he controlled the whole. His father was controlled by Chicago, and he didn't like it. And you got to go back to Prohibition era when his father, Joe Kennedy, was a brilliant banker. Never
Yeah.
take that away from him. The guy was a genius, but he was also a bootlegger. He had a warehouse in Canada with a guy that owned Fleischmann's Liquor, who was from Newark, New Jersey. They had a warehouse up in Canada, and his father-in-law, Honey Fitzgerald, was a powerhouse politician in Boston, controlled the Boston Bank, built the Boston Harbor, and he was a gangster from Ireland. So when he married Rose Fitzgerald, his wife, his father-in-law made him the head of he was the youngest president of a bank in American history. And when he was bootlegging, he had a load of booze coming out of Canada, and he hijacked it, and the booze belonged to the Purple Gang. Bad idea. So the Purple Gang said, "You're a dead man." And they were serious people. If you don't know who they are, look them up.
Okay.
And he went running home to his father-in-law, and he begged him. He said, "What am I going to do? How do I handle this?" And his father-in-law said, "I can't help you. There's only one guy in the country that can help you, and that's Joe Esposito, who was the first Don in Chicago." And he went to Chicago, and he sat down with Joe Esposito, and Esposito said, "You know what, kid? You're a real good earner. So here's what we're going to do. You go home to Boston. I'll take care of the Purple Gang, but you belong to us now." And he was under thumb to Chicago. The only building that he ever put money into in America is the Mercantile Building in downtown Chicago. They made him build that. They sent him to Hollywood, and he got introduced to Randolph Hearst, the newspaper guy, and he was the instrument of RKO Studios. He put their distribution deal together. He got the Jewish theater owners to collaborate and make a distribution deal with RKO Studios. If you look under the paperwork, you'll find Joe Kennedy's name. He was screwing every actress in Hollywood. He was, playboy and a half. He was then in 1926, there was a place in Chicago called the Hamilton Club. You know anything about that?
No.
The Hamilton Club was a political foothold, the same as the New York Athletic Club in New York. And the president and everybody hung out there. It was a big political stronghold. And in 1926, America was being accused by Europe because it was after World War I, we became a war-bearing country. We started to manufacture war goods. We were taking jobs away from Europe. And Europe was crying that they weren't getting the money returned back that they lent into the country to build the country. America was built. There was only one investor in America with $10 million that started the investment of America. The rest of the money came from Europe, out of the banks of Geneva and through London. London was the major investor into the country for years. And they were crying they weren't getting their money back. So the people at the Hamilton Club said, "You know what? You're a very clever banker. Here's what we want you to do." And he created what they call a short sell. You know anything about the stock market?
A little bit.
You know what a short sell is?
You're selling it for less than its value.
You sell the stock short. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he created this short sell, and they stole $5 million in broad daylight from Pathé Newsroom, and no one ever caught it, and no one ever said a word about it. So they said, "Very good. Now this is what we want you to do." And he orchestrated this major short sell that was aimed at 30 companies in Europe. And one of the companies was owned by Blackjack Bouvier, who was Jackie Kennedy's father, and his father and his brother. And it was a Rothschild company. Yeah. And they started the short sell in 1928, going into 29. They put this whole thing together, and The first week they made a fortune. The stock market was going crazy. The country panicked and the crash happened. When they came back to finish the short sell, the crash was on and they made a fortune. Joe Kennedy got all his property on the East Coast of Florida and all that from the short sell. They made a lot of money. And 30 companies in Europe went bankrupt, and they knew they had to reinvest back in the country to get their money back. So they took Joe Kennedy and they said, now here's what we want you to do. You're going to become the head of the SEC. And he rewrote the laws of the SEC, knowing these people had to reinvest in the country under a different set of laws. You don't know any of this, do you?
No. I'm just like sitting here like, oh, this is
history of
awesome.
your country, my friend.
I'm
I'm
actually
like hanging on your every word.
Are we boring you?
Boring me?
No, he's stretching over here. Are we boring him?
no,
Tyler always sits like that. I'm hanging on every word.
So the short sell went very well. The crash happened. Bam, he became head of the SEC. He rebuilt the SEC. And in 1935, when he was done, they said, very good job, my man. You did a great, excellent job. Now we're going to send you to Europe, and you're going to be the ambassador to London. And some wise guys grabbed him, and they said, hey, come here, Sonny. You're going over to Europe. We want to tighten some strings up over there. So you're going to see this guy, and this guy. And America wasn't in the war yet, 1935.
Yeah.
Joe Kennedy goes over as ambassador to Kennedy into England, and he sits down with a man who was the Shah of Iran, who was a gangster, and they formed a bank. And with that bank, they lent money to Hitler. And Hitler came back to the same group. They added a guy named Khashoggi, and they sold Hitler weapons. And then England turned around and said to Joe Kennedy, whoa, you can't do that. You're lending money to our enemy. And he didn't think he was doing anything wrong because America wasn't in the war yet. You understand? But
Yeah.
England thought he did something wrong, and they threw him out of England. And he came home, and he didn't come home embarrassed. No one ever knew exactly why he came home, because Al Gore's family owned the papers on the East Coast out of Indiana, and Randolph Hearst owned the papers on the West Coast. There was no television yet, and the radios were owned by the Murchison family out of Texas. So no one ever said a word as to why he was sent back to America.
They just covered it up, essentially. Don't talk about it. No one will ever know.
No one said a word. And he became back as Ambassador Joe Kennedy, still in a very prestigious, monumental deal, you know?
So when John Kennedy was running for president,
Jackie Kennedy's father drank himself to death after his company went bankrupt. And her mother never forgot that. And she schemed. She married another Wall Street guy. And George de Mournchild, who was Zapruder's partner in Dallas, was engaged to Jackie Kennedy's aunt.
yeah,
She called him Uncle George when she was a kid. George de Mournchild and Zapruder came from Russia. They were white Russians in the manufacturing business for dresses and all kinds of shit. They got $250,000 from Meyer Lansky. He sent them to Dallas, Texas, and they set up shop in Dallas. And George de Mournchild groomed Oswald. I mean, all the pieces fit in the puzzle if you really look at it very well, you know. And Jackie Kennedy was groomed to marry Jack Kennedy because her mother wanted her money back.
Oh man, these people just do horrible things to their children, don't
Nobody ever talks about this. I mean, Jack Kennedy and Jackie were both. Jack Kennedy screwed. It was like his father. Every chick in the world, Marilyn Monroe, he had affairs with everybody.
Yeah.
And Jackie was just as bad. So they were going to split up. They lived on a street called Bowden Street, which was right next to the State House in Boston when he was a senator. And they were getting ready to run him for president. So the father paid Jackie $10 million to stay in the marriage.
That's insane.
That was the Camelot deal, right? It was supposed to be such an almighty relationship.
I'm just thinking, like, the Kennedys were a pretty esteemed family. It seemed like around the time when John Kennedy became president and stuff like that. But there's all these, like,
how do you think he became president?
The mafia guy, or no, not the
That's
mafia.
right. San Giancana from Chicago. Wasn't for Giancana, he would have never. Because Joe Kennedy was under thumb, he went to Chicago. He sat down with San Giancana. He said, "I'm running his first son was supposed to be president."
That was Bobby, right?
No, Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy Jr. was his first son. He was a tremendous pilot. He was a World War II hero, a great guy. And he was out of the service, 10 days away from being mustered completely out. And they built, this is great, they built this plane to do a kamikaze run into the German munition factories to try to end the war. Yeah. And they needed a test pilot to pilot this plane. And they talked him into flying it. And he took the plane up on a test pilot. Boof, he exploded. He's dead. A week later, 2 weeks later, they scrapped the whole deal. Yeah. And they got the first Kennedy out of the box. Now he goes, Jack Kennedy's going to run for president. He runs to Chicago. He sits down. He says, "I promise you both my son's ears for your support." Right? And Chicago says, not a bad idea. New York was very unhappy about it because we already own Nixon. What the hell do we need Kennedy for? The mafia owned Nixon. He was already owned. What do you need Kennedy for? You understand? And San Giancana said, "But wow, we made this great deal with Joe Kennedy. It's a great idea. Bing, 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 bing. You got it. Thank you very much. Thank you." So anyway, so they go and now the electoral votes. He's out here in California to be nominated. And his father told Giancana that he had that in the bag. 2 days into the nomination out here, he calls up Giancana and he says, "Oh, we got a little bit of a problem." And he said, "I thought you had all these people lined up to do this easy." "Well, we thought we did, but, Illinois had never voted Democrat before. Sam Giancana made a few phone calls. Illinois votes Democrat. 2 other states around it vote. Boom. Third day, Joe Kennedy calls him up. He said, "We still got a little bit of a problem." And there was only one state left that would take Kennedy across the line, a little state called West Virginia, who had a lot of electoral votes because of all the mining and money that was down there. So we had a lot of illegal casinos down there. And Giancana made a couple phone calls to the Cellini family and a few people. Some debt was excused, and West Virginia raised their hand. And Jack Kennedy got nominated. And a guy called H.L. Hunt sent a bag full of money to California to give to Joe Kennedy so that Johnson would run vice president. Yeah. Jack Kennedy's now running for president, and the vote is nip and tuck between him and Nixon. Very tight race. Giancana gets called on the phone. There were people in Cicero and a couple other counties of Illinois that people voted 20 times and they were dead. So Jack Kennedy squeaks the election out. He wins by a hair. If you ever go back and look, it was a very close race. Yeah, becomes president of the United States. Meyer Lansky and them in New York said, "Well, okay, what's Joe Kennedy telling the Giancana? What's Kennedy going to do with Bobby?" And they said, "Oh, Bobby's going to become Ambassador Bobby Kennedy to Ireland." Well, he made him Attorney General. Told his brother, "Make your brother Attorney General." Then he told Bobby, "Put all my good friends in jail." Bobby went after Chicago, went after the mafia, went after Jimmy Hoffa, went after everybody.
And that's what got him killed.
He's not alive either, is he? You know what I mean?
Man.
And then what Joe Kennedy did, and what happened in Texas is, thank you. What happened in Texas is that there were some angry people down there because the oil guys were making a fortune on what you call surplus oil. They were paying no tax for it. So Joe Kennedy whispered in his son's ear, you got to levy a tax on these guys. They're getting away with murder. So he levied a tax against the surplus oil business down in Texas, and that cost them $300 million a year. You think they were angry?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of portholes of anxiety. Then there was the Bay of Pigs, where all those kids were slaughtered in there because Joe Kennedy told his son, they don't need any ammunition in their guns. We don't want anybody firing a gun off and creating an incident. They were killed, all of them, slaughtered in the Bay of Pigs. And some of those guys were CIA guys, so they turned against Joe Kennedy. And now you had, maybe it was the CIA, maybe it was the mafia, maybe who was responsible for the death of Kennedy. And the whole thing was orchestrated from the bankers of Geneva, who were angrier than more than anybody because of the crash of 29 and all those companies going belly up, and they held that animosity. And the guy who orchestrated Dealey Plaza, they did a movie about him. You know, he was he was the hitter from Europe who was famous. And he was the first job he ever did called the Jackal. His name was Carlos Sanchez, and he was the Jackal. First job he ever did in America was Dealey Plaza. He was the umbrella guy. There were 30 people in Dealey Plaza the day of Kennedy's death that could have been responsible for killing him. Gangsters and hoodlums. One of them, Woody Harrelson's father. When those people came out of the train station across the bridge, all the hobos, they were supposed to be hobos that got locked up. One of them was Woody Harrelson's father, who was a hitter for New Orleans. He worked out in New Orleans for the mafia in New Orleans.
What?
Yeah. God, you guys don't know your history very well, do you?
I don't think what you're telling us is like a regular, like they're not teaching this and this.
They don't teach you any of this in school. They don't teach you any of this in school, pal. Trust me.
Well, I didn't even realize that there was any, as a kid, when you're sitting in history class, you don't realize that everything they're telling you is not true, right? So it wasn't until I was like in my early 20s, or after high school that I realized, hey, there's some wonky stuff going on here with some of this stuff, the way it's reported. But James Franco did kind of it was a Stephen King fictionalized show about the whole John F. Kennedy thing. I don't know if you saw that.
They did. Bill Costner did the thing about the guy in New Orleans when they did the Kennedy deal, the Kennedy movie, which was the closest thing to what was going on. But they were. You got to read the book. There's a lot of things in the book you'll like.
In your book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already started it. It's awesome. I told you I bought it on the phone. I bought it on Kindle, so I've already started it, and I'm fascinated. So is there going to be so you're working on another book. Is it a follow-up to this book, or is it a new?
Yeah, we got that. We got 2 books coming out, one in succession. And then we're gonna redo Charlie Luciano's book. And so we're gonna tell a lot of truth about things that people really need to know about,
Yeah, within the first few paragraphs of Family Legacy, I was hooked. It gets
better as you go, trust me.
I'm excited. I used to be a big reader when I was younger, and now with doing this podcast, I watch a ton of movies and TV shows because that's what we talk about. So I've lost my chance to read, and this is the first book I've sat down with in a couple years, novel, and I'm hooked. I mean, I'm going to make the other guys in our podcast read it once I'm done. But it's fantastic. But
it's a good read. It's a good book.
Jack, when's your next book expected to be released?
In about 30 days.
Oh, it's coming out this month.
Mm-hmm.
Or next in August.
It'll be out before the end of August.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to look for that. And then you've got a couple things that are coming out soon. I see one. Is it a movie, Liberty?
Ballad of a Simple Man is a film that it's a film that I wrote the script that 40 years ago when I was doing
Really?
King Kong. You ever see The Informer? The Victor McLaughlin, John Ford picture was done in the 30s about the Irish Revolution.
I haven't.
Won 4 Oscars. Won 4 Oscars in the late 30s. Victor McLaughlin was the first character actor to win a leading Oscar for the
Really?
film. And I took the book and I redid it, and we opened up Ireland, and it's going to be a great movie. Great movie, actually. Looking forward to that.
So is that the same story? Didn't they redo it with Matt Damon? Is that the same story, or with Bryan Cranston or something like that? Is it?
They did a modern day version that was not very good.
No, I barely remember it.
They wanted me to do modern
sounded
day. That's why I
familiar to me.
argued with Paramount, and I said nope, no way. I'm doing it in the original period. And the music I've already done. We wrote a song called "Simple Man" that Elton John recorded.
For this movie?
It's the music for the movie. It's the
Oh,
the theme song.
That's awesome.
Elton John recorded it back in the 80s when I wrote it.
So are you pretty good friends with Elton John?
Not really. I knew one of his writers. I was very close to one of his writers.
Oh, gotcha.
And he was contracted to write a song for Elton. So he and I sat down in London, and I said, "Well, I'm going to do a song for this movie." And we went over it, and he said, "Whoa, that's perfect." I gave him the lyrics, and it fits the movie like a glove.
So when is that expected to be released?
Well, they're able to shoot in Ireland now, so hopefully in about another month or so, we'll go over and put that together, and it'll be released. Probably we'll get it done, I would think, if we're lucky, by the spring of next year, and it'll be released before the end of the year next year.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great movie, actually. I like it. But the series, the miniseries, and the series for Family Legacy is going to be, it's going to be great. It's going to be, it'll make Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire look like a kid's game, you know? It's gonna be
So
really good.
is it going to be kind of gritty like Sopranos and Boardwalk? So be something that will be like on HBO or something like that? Like,
Well, I think
not
we're
at all.
HBO or Showtime will be a place to take it to. We're gonna, you know, we'll sit down and make the best deal for the product, you know.
Yeah.
And I like HBO still, and I think they would be the best one for it because of some of the things they've done and done it well.
Yeah.
So they know what they're playing with, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Some of my favorite shows are from HBO recently. They're The Outsider. I don't know if you've seen that one, but HBO's putting out some good stuff.
HBO is a very good company.
Yeah. Yeah. But so it's going to have to fit into one of those kind of models, like something that allows you to be a little edgier.
It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Tell a lot of truth. People are going to get a lot of answers out of it, I'll tell you.
Jack, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we'll have a good time.
But, well, Jack, is there anything that you want to, besides the book and the movie you got now, is there anything?
The book is familylegacythenovel.com, and you know, it takes you right there. And we're the new book will be coming out. It's going to be brilliant.
What's the new book called?
We're having a lot of fun, you know. Would have been out already if it wasn't for this pandemic thing.
I know, right? Yeah, Tyler and I are feeling the pain. We were looking so forward to some of the movies and stuff that were supposed to be released this summer, and
everything's on hold.
Yeah, it's taken our podcast into a completely different direction.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
yeah, but yeah. So what's the new book called? Family Legacies. Is there a subtitle?
It's like the Family Legacy, the real truth. They're still playing with the title. They're still playing with the title for it. You know, it'll be Family Legacy something. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, next time we talk, Jack, hopefully it's in your new movie studio.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Let me tell you. That'd be
Yeah, I'm
absolutely
excited,
cool.
man. I'm excited.
so
Check
am
it
I.
out.
Yeah, it sounds
So
really
much.
cool.
Yeah,
Maybe
we're gonna have a good
I'll
time.
try with Steve to come out there and check it out.
We're gonna have a good time, man. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, Jack, it's been a
Okay,
pleasure as
guys.
always.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, take care and have a good day, guys. Stay out of
Yeah, have
trouble.
a good night.
How do we get out of here? Just click on it.
Oh, there he is. So that was pretty awesome, Tyler.
Yeah, I had to Google a lot to be able to.
Oh, dude, I have about 15 tabs open on my browser right now of stuff that I need to look up for. But so the Absolute Geek guys got to talk to Jack a couple weeks ago. And they were telling me, dude, it was amazing. Like, this guy is just full of stories. So I got really excited, and it definitely paid off. I mean,
he's definitely full of stories. That's for sure.
yeah,
Oh,
and his family, like, he was involved with that stuff. This isn't a guy that's talking about like conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, he was there. He witnessed a lot of these things happening, and
right.
it blew. Dude, I was hanging on every word that he said. That man was brilliant. But like Jack was saying, if you have not checked out his book, Family Legacies, definitely go check it out. Real quick, I wanted to talk about, I got to open another tab here. I wanted to just go over with Tyler about a couple of headlines. Comic-Con's going on this week, and we've got a couple articles about some of the panels that we've seen, but there's been a couple announcements that come out of Comic-Con as well. The first of which is Bill and Ted Face the Music is now due to be out September 1st, and it's going to go to video on demand.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to have a limited theatrical release, but it's also going to be able to view from home, which I am thoroughly excited for, because we had that Absolute Geek told you. Yeah, Jack was awesome, dude. But which I'm excited for, because we were nervous that we weren't going to be able to see it for a while, and that's a movie that I really wanted to cover on the podcast.
Yeah.
But you hadn't heard that news?
No, I haven't seen any Comic-Con at this point. So.
Oh, you haven't watched anything? Well, we did get the first 4 minutes or so of the intro to the New Mutants, which is a Fox property that's being released by Disney after the acquisition. It's been postponed and postponed and postponed. And I gotta say, those first 4 minutes, it got me kind of excited. Like, I really like the tone. They're kind of going for a horror feel, and it seems really gritty. It's based in the X-Men universe, so it's the last official X-Men movie from Fox, that universe, that we'll ever see. So this closes the door.
Yeah, I was trying to look at it because I think I saw a little bit on it. Yeah, that was with the. Yeah, okay. New Mutants is the one that has the kid from Stranger Things in it. The photographer guy.
Oh, yes. Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jonathan in Stranger Things. But yeah, he's in it. The Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones is in it. The girl, her name is escaping me right now, but the girl from Split is in it as well. I'm pretty excited. But what I heard, though, is it's an amazingly short screen time. And so the movie's going to be real short.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a bummer. But
yeah, we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one hasn't gone video on demand. With how long Disney has been postponing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And postponing it and postponing it. I mean, the movie was ready to be released, I think, 2 years ago or something like that. And Matt, who's listening, can correct me if I'm wrong.
You know he will too.
Yeah, but it's been available for a while. I think the original release date was 2 years ago or something like that. And then all the acquisition stuff started happening, and then Dark Phoenix flopped, and that changed things. And I'm surprised we haven't seen it on Hulu or Disney Plus or something like that, or at least available for video on demand. But they postponed it again. I think it's just a movie that has been constantly teased and constantly talked about that we'll never get to see.
So wait, did you say it has a set release date or no?
I think the new release date is technically August, but I don't know if that's going to stick. So let me see here real quick. No, that movie has been so originally, so their last release date was April 3rd, 2020. It's been postponed since then, August 28th, but I'm not too hopeful on that.
Yeah. Believe it when you see it type thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is next month, so this is the closest we've been to a release before they've postponed it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's I'm excited for that movie. I've been excited since I saw the first trailer. Max was like, I don't like it. But Max, you know, he needs Batman to come on screen for him to like it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it definitely looks like they have some, they have some good talent in there as far as actors and stuff. So yeah, hopefully it works out well.
And then, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, New Mutants. I don't know much about it. What's like? I mean, I know you said it's gonna be edgy and it's gonna be more like a horror theme. But
It
what's
definitely has a horror theme. So it's a bunch of kids that have super powers that are mutants, and they get put into like an asylum. The New Mutants is actually a comic book, but they kind of made it into a horror thing. They're basically being hunted.
Okay.
Something. I don't know. I mean, we haven't learned much from it.
By
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how close they're following the comics or whatever, but they're put into like a hospital essentially, and they're kept there. They live there, right? And they start getting hunted. At least from what I saw from the trailer. So, but it definitely has a horror feel. I mean, like a slasher flick horror feel, but with mutants. And so I thought, hey, this is a different idea than what we've seen over and over again. And I like when studios try to do different things, especially with comic book movies. I mean, Disney's been kind of doing it since they acquired Marvel Studios, is trying to put little doses of other types of movies into their movies. I mean, with the Doctor Strange Universe of Madness, I think it's called, that's coming out, it's supposed to have a horror element, which is why they got Sam Raimi, who's famous for the Evil Dead movies and stuff like that. So I love when they do that. They're trying different things to make the comic book movie feel consistently new. So,
Right.
So I got excited for it. Max said, "No, thanks."
Well, I mean, I'm gonna have to look more into it. I'm typically not somebody who's into the horror genre like at all. Like I don't typically go for that. But
well, it is PG-13, so I don't think it's going to be like I believe it's PG-13. I might be wrong on that, but let me see here real quick. PG-13, yeah. So it's not going to be like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, where they're like blood gushing against the doors and stuff like that. It's just going to have like that edge of your seat type feeling to
maybe
it.
Maybe a little bit like Stranger Things.
Huh?
Maybe a little bit like Stranger Things.
Yeah, but less of the. I think there's going to be less of the unknown because we know they're all mutants, right? So we're not going to be investigating how they got their powers or where their powers come from, like what Stranger Things does. So there's going to be a little bit less of that.
But there is a mystery, it sounds like, of what's after them, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be a mix, like if Glass was done in a horror element. You know, Glass, the Split sequel.
Right.
I've compared it to Glass with the idea behind it of being in this like secret facility, but then mix like a Michael Myers Halloween type element to it. So yeah, I think it's going to be cool, man. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't know how many people actually are, because they know that this can't lead into anything else. Disney's not going to further develop this property. I'm certain of it. I don't have a seat at the table, to actually know, but this is going to be the end of the X-Men universe before the MCU adopts it in, pretty much.
Well, and how long can you keep something that's kind of a smaller title like this keep the hype going when you're delaying it that long. You know what I mean? Like, so that
Yeah.
might be a difficult part of it too.
And I think the delays have kind of turned people off too with it. I mean, it made me nervous about how good the movie was actually going to be by how they delayed it over and over again. I mean, I think I want to say Dark Phoenix was delayed a couple times. I don't remember exactly, and we saw how that turned out, right? So when you delay films, it just does not bode well.
Well, the whole premise of Dark Phoenix was just a bad idea to begin with too. But
you know what's funny about Dark Phoenix? Something I read the other day. So the director of Dark Phoenix was Simon Kinberg, right?
Okay.
And Simon Kinberg is responsible for X-Men: The Last Stand, which also dealt with Dark Phoenix. So I don't know why Fox, the last Stand was awful, right?
It's terrible.
And I want to say, did he write it? He didn't direct it. That was Brett Ratner. But I want to say he wrote it. Yeah. So Simon Kinberg wrote The Last Stand, which dealt with the very similar storyline of Dark Phoenix, right? Jean Grey getting her alter ego or whatever. And then they go and hire this guy that wrote the first movie that was awful. And it wasn't a director awful. Like, it was bad directing, but it was bad writing too, right? And they go and hire this guy to direct the same version of a movie that bombed. When did this movie come out? 2006? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it makes me excited for Marvel picking up the Fox properties because I think they're going to do it justice. I mean, X-Men, I didn't really like First Class, I loved X-Men 1 and 2, and I loved Days of Future Past, and that's about it. Oh, and the Deadpool movies.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain things, like even the, what was it? The one of the Wolverine movies. Did they just call it Origins 2?
Oh, Logan was fantastic. But
Logan was great.
They had Wolverine Origins, then Wolverine 2, which Wolverine 2 wasn't bad.
It was not good, but it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't...
I like the idea of him going to Japan and stuff. That's a very famous comic line for Logan, for Wolverine.
Yeah. So
Right.
I mean, like, there are some good things that have come out of it, but there's just been so many crapshoots that you're just like, oh my gosh. And one of the things about Dark Phoenix that I think is so funny that they've done it twice now, and it's failed miserably both times. But like, Dark Phoenix wasn't always Dark Phoenix. Like, the reason why they have to specify Dark Phoenix is because they're supposed to be a good Phoenix. And like, when did that ever happen? Like, they never.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, like, the Phoenix is this like galactic guardian, right? And it's always been super good. And when it turns into Dark Phoenix, it's like its own entity, right? Which they don't get into a lot in the movies, but it becomes Dark Phoenix because it basically decides that it wants to experience different pleasures and stuff, and so it becomes Dark Phoenix for a while. But initially, it's, it helps the X-Men, and it helps, like, there's some interplanetary travel and stuff in the comics and stuff, but and it helps the X-Men defeat some baddies out there. But like, yeah, there's nothing about that. There's, the alien element that they did in the Dark Phoenix was just so skewed and weird, and they could have made it really cool, and
I see. So I'm reading up on it right now because I'd never heard that story that we were saying. But yeah, Dark Phoenix was Phoenix, and then she was made. At least this is I don't know what comic line this is from, but this is from Marvel.com. She was Phoenix, and then she went insane because somebody, Mastermind, I think. Yeah, mental manipulation by Mastermind caused Phoenix to go insane, and then she turned into Dark Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah, I mean...
So the story doesn't really touch on that. It's just Jean Grey interacts with the space thing and becomes Dark Phoenix. But it doesn't have that period in the middle where she was Phoenix. Yeah.
Well, and that's the whole thing. Like, if she's only ever Dark Phoenix, why do you even say Dark Phoenix? It would just be Phoenix, right? I mean, like why?
Well, then if they said Phoenix and they get confused with Eric Roberts' company. You know what I'm talking about? His company that he's developing for erectile dysfunction is called the Phoenix.
Oh.
So there's probably licensing issues and stuff like that. No, Eric Roberts is a good guy.
No, I remember. Yeah, I saw his interview. I just wasn't making the connection. But
yeah, I wasn't as in. I mean, I read a few X-Men comics, but Jean Grey was never really a big part of the ones that I read. And my interaction with X-Men was from a few of the comics I read and the cartoon show. And I don't remember them ever going into a Phoenix to Dark Phoenix.
Oh yeah, they did.
Oh, what did they?
Yeah, they did. Which may be the iteration that I'm referencing of her transition. Because it's been a long time since I've been into that, the comics from when I was a kid. So the storylines kind of get mixed up a little bit, but definitely in the 90s cartoon, they had that transition. There's the whole point where Xavier has this basically long distance relationship with this alien telepath, and really long distance, and she asks for help, and then there's this whole thing where X-Men in space, and then Jean Grey gets the Phoenix, and she helps out, and then Phoenix goes bad. So
I'm gonna have to watch that cartoon series again because it's on Disney Plus, and I've tried to watch it with my boys, but they're just not interested in it. I think just the animation style is not to their liking. I mean, they're 6 and they're 5 and 8, so it's just not at their liking.
That intro music, man, it's so good.
Oh, dude, that's classic. They got sued for that.
What, they did?
The intro music. I think just a couple years ago they got sued for that. Somebody was saying that was their song and they didn't get paid. But that happens all the time. But just on July 14th was the 20-year anniversary of the original X-Men movie. Did you know that?
No. Oh my gosh.
And Funko released a official line to commemorate these movies, and you can see on the back here. So this is Mystique. You can see on the back here some of the ones they released.
That's the better not Jennifer Lawrence Mystique, right?
Yeah, this is Rebecca Romaine Stamos.
Yes,
not Stamos anymore. It was Stamos back then. It's not Stamos now. And I got Logan here too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that one's cool.
So, and I've got a couple more coming from their 20th anniversary line. But yeah, it was funny because that's a Fox owned property. Now it's Disney owned, and it was kind of cool to see Disney kind of allow some of these things to be made to commemorate that milestone of this movie. Because X-Men, Spider-Man, made an impact to superhero movies, but X-Men 1 was unlike anything we'd really ever seen before.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of anything else. You need to watch some panels, man. I wanted to talk to you about some of your favorite panels from San Diego Comic-Con at Home 2020.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the whole, I don't know. I haven't really been hyped about the whole streaming thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hearing from a lot of people. I think where they missed the mark is these are all pre-recorded panels, and they're just releasing them the whatever day they're scheduled to release. They're all pre-recorded, so that fan interaction is gone. And I think that's my one complaint is you can't ask questions, you can't be part of the conversation, and that's why we go to Comic-Con, and that's why we see panels, is the opportunity to be in the same room with some of these people or have them hear you.
Yeah, Definitely, I mean, it's definitely part of it anyway. But yeah,
Well, I mean, when we go to Phoenix Fan Fusion or Tucson or whatever, some of the best part is sitting in those panels and having discussions and stuff like that. I mean, we put on a lot of panels with the guys from Absolute Geek and
yeah,
like that's the best part, is that interaction between fans and panelists.
Well, I mean, there's a whole reason why it's not been just streamed. It's because being there is better. It just is, and a lot of people are disappointed that they can't get out to a lot of things, you know. And I feel like a lot of this effort to put things into streaming is just kind of it's fallen more and more by the wayside because people are kind of getting more and more sick of it. I feel like.
I feel like they would have gotten a lot more ground if they had all these things live.
Yeah, I mean that would have definitely made it better.
Record
it I mean, there's no real fan interaction at E3, but I mean, like you got Microsoft coming out and doing their like E3 type of thing. You know, what they would normally do at E3, and they do it live, but it's recorded as well, so you can go back and watch it. That definitely would have been better. And it's like, I don't get why they didn't do that. It doesn't make sense why they did.
Well, for instance, tonight, just about 3 hours ago, they had a sit down with Kevin Smith on Comic-Con at home, and I don't believe it was live. Here, hold on, let me pause it. It wasn't a live thing, so fans weren't really able. Like, yeah, Absolute Geek wants to record a recap of San Diego Comic-Con. I really think we should as well. Well, let's put that in the books, Matt. Yeah, it wasn't live. Like, and I mean, we hear Kevin Smith talk all the time, right? He's kind of he belongs to the geeks and the nerds, right? He's kind of our valued little treasure, right?
Yeah.
So we hear him talk all the time about the same kind of stuff, like we know, and you want to be able to ask him questions because he's a super like knowledgeable guy and he has insights to the industry that most of these other people won't give you. That's why he seems so personable and stuff. Is he's honest, right? And to not be able to watch a panel with him and ask him questions like you would at any other Comic-Con that he's been to, it is just a shame.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm still gonna watch it because I love Kevin Smith. But speaking of Kevin Smith, they released yesterday a Funko Pop of Iron Bob. I don't know. Have you watched Jay and Silent Bob, Tyler?
No.
Okay, so Silent Bob is Kevin Smith's character. So Kevin Smith is the director, and he stars in it as Silent Bob.
Yeah, I know the basic of it, but
yeah, Jay and Silent Bob the reboot. They go to Comic-Con because the reboot is essentially them trying to get their movie from to not be made again. So the first Jay and Silent Bob movie, they travel to a con to stop the Blunt Man and Chronic movie from being made, right? Because it's basically based on them. Okay. And the second movie, the reboot, it's called Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. They then go to Comic-Con to stop the reboot from being made of Blunt Man and Chronic. But this time they brought their daughter with them. So, but in the movie, Silent Bob has to fight somebody, and he gets into an Iron Man suit, and he's Iron Bob. And they released a Funko Pop yesterday at FYE of Iron Bob, and I snatched that thing up so quick, dude. I was so excited.
I bet you did.
But you need to watch those movies. They're just really stupid, fun movies. I mean, nothing in them is at an intellectual level. Unless you go with Dogma. Dogma gets into some intellectual stuff. But none of them are like, they're just easy to watch, funny popcorn movies. Like I love those movies. I love everything about Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes. So, but yeah, I can't really think of anything else that's going on. So this Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing, it won't be live, Pat Jankowitz, who Pat Jankowitz is known for some of his work on The Rundown and K-Pax and things like that. And he and I are actually going to talk about some of his involvement with movies and things of that nature. also going to be talking about vintage toys and collectibles and stuff like that. So it'll be a little different kind of content of what you normally get from Couch Crunchers. But as you can see, I'm a big toy collector. My whole office, wall to wall, filled with toys, Funkos, and vintage toys. And it's what gets me excited. So I jumped at the opportunity to interview Pat and talk about some of that stuff. But we got a lot of. Go ahead.
Have you seen my Balrog?
Your Balrog?
My Balrog. I'm going to show you real fast because you're always showing off your Funko Pops. So I'm going to show off my Balrog real fast.
That's the only thing I ever get that's new, so that's why I show them off. Man, I'm going to tell him you said that when he gets back. Tyler. Matt just said, Tyler is the only guy I know on a movie podcast that doesn't watch movies. All these iconic movies that I talked to you about, like Reservoir Dogs and all these movies, you never have seen them.
I've seen a ton of movies, man. I just watch very different movies than you, I guess.
But Reservoir Dogs is considered a film classic, right? And you've never seen it. Like what?
I don't think you've seen every film classic ever made.
I watch a lot of movies, and I typically I make a concerted effort to watch old movies that I probably haven't seen that lots of people talk about. So that in these conversations, when somebody asks me, "Have you seen this movie?" I can say, "Yes, I've seen that movie." But no, I remember Jack was asking us if we watched the Richard Donner cut of Superman, and I think I have seen that because I watched one recently that Marlon Brando was in, and I didn't realize that was the Donner cut. So, because a lot of
I already bought it on Amazon, so I'm watching.
You just bought it?
Yeah, I bought it. Yeah, it was $4 to rent and $5 to buy it. So,
oh my gosh, that's a no-brainer. I might even have it on my Vudu. I don't know, but yeah, Tyler, I swear I'm gonna attach you to my coffee table with a ball and chain, Maxie, I was just about to call in tonight. Look, baby James is here.
I saw you guys are still alive, and my company that was over meeting the baby left, so I thought I'd bring him on to say a quick hello.
So I don't know who said
hello.
it. I think it was Ben in the text stream that you have going on, Max. He called him Jep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm going to be able to call him anything but Jep from this point forward.
Well,
because that is just too perfect.
I don't mind it. That's kind of cute.
Jep. Yeah, because James sounds like an old man. Like, it's a beautiful name. I love you. I'm not trying to knock your name whatsoever. But when you say James, it sounds like an older individual, right?
James sounds like that's what I originally said, and now I don't think so.
But most people, for James, when they're younger, they'll say like Jimmy, right? Like Jimmy and Jim comes from James. So when you have a young boy that's named James, most people call him Jimmy because it just has that kind of lower age to it. Mm-hmm. But dude, Jep is just perfect.
Well, even though his middle name doesn't start with a D, I kind of like calling him JD because I'm such a big Scrubs fan. JD. Você gosta disso? I like to speak to him in Portuguese too, so he can learn Portuguese.
I'm hoping. Anyway. I don't know what your schedule's like tomorrow, but I was going to talk to you about it after, about potentially maybe stopping by with my daughter, Kaylin.
Call me when you're done.
Yeah, I'll call you. If not then maybe Tuesday or something. But
I swear this kid sleeps so still. I think he's dead. He's not, but he's just like. He's just out.
Dude, it's better because you've had a couple nights with him now. Because he was born on Thursday.
Yeah,
Wednesday,
Thursday. I've got my days mixed up. He was born Thursday, the 23rd.
Yeah, so he's born 2 weeks and a day after my daughter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
mine was born the 8th. So Max will know this because he's had a couple nights with it. How many times a night do you wake up just to check to see if they're still breathing?
Too many.
Yeah.
Last night was rough, man. Last night he decided. Well, Okay, this was incredible. So last night we came home from the hospital around 9 o'clock is when we got home. 8:30 is when we got home. Around 7 p.m., he fell asleep at the hospital and stayed asleep until about 11 o'clock that night. So that's like 5 hours. It was actually even more than that. It was like 5 hours, 40 minutes. He was totally asleep. But we didn't go to bed until about 10 o'clock, and I couldn't fall asleep until 11 because I kept getting out of bed to check to see if he was breathing. I kept just going over and like putting my finger under his nose to make sure, or putting my hand on his chest to make sure it was rising and falling. And then by the time I finally was asleep, he woke up at 11 o'clock last night, which is fair. He had been asleep for almost 6 hours, which is crazy. Babies don't usually sleep that long uninterrupted.
Oh yeah, you'll see they'll do that sometimes. Olivia's done it twice already.
Yeah.
Just let
I figured a lot of it was just due to it was a stressful day being at the hospital, and they have to do tests where they like prick their heel and they give them shots and just poking and prodding the baby. So we figured he was just exhausted from all of that. But anyway, yeah. And then I woke up a few times after that. But my wife is so happy to have a kid. She like just kept him in her arms all night. And
well, you guys had what, 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years total. 7 years before we got pregnant, but about 8 years of wanting a kid before we finally got one. So he's a big deal. He's a miracle. We're really, really happy he's here. He was like wide awake like 5 minutes ago, and now he is zonked.
Out.
Yeah,
You gotta remember too. For a long time, I mean, they were connected to Kelsey, who's Max's wife, and they were getting those hormones and stuff through Kelsey, right?
Yeah.
And then after they're born, they're not connected by the umbilical cord anymore. So that some of those hormones are leaving his body. So you'll see moments where they just zonked out and wide awake, and like it's just their body adjusting to their new state of being, I guess you could say. Matt says, "Congratulations, Maxie."
Thank you. He's a beautiful boy. We love him. So excited.
Oh, yeah, he's gorgeous.
But anyway, sorry you guys were closing up the show, but I saw you were live still. I'm like, I gotta pop in and say hi and introduce James.
I was nervous. I was nervous that that you were gonna, because I did this when Olivia was born. I popped on and said hi to you guys, but I was nervous you were gonna do it during Jack. But I still wanted you to do it, but I wanted you to wait till Jack was gone. Which, dude, did you watch any of it?
Not much. Okay, I'm a man. A lot of men do this. I went upstairs to poop, and I watched for a little bit while I was pooping. But that's it.
Dude, that guy is an
I heard him talking a lot about concrete on sets and stuff. So
he's building a movie studio in Nevada. And the whole building's going to be made out of what did he call it? It was hemp something.
Industrial
hemp,
nice.
Which is like 9,000 times stronger than concrete and like way more energy efficient and stuff like that, and way cheaper. He was saying he could build a 1,200 square foot house, right, Tyler, with a bathroom, a kitchen, like everything, like the walls and everything inside for $20,000.
Wow,
which is insane.
Well, I'm gonna get going, but it was good saying hi to you guys. I'm gonna go hand it off to my wife. He was fussing a little bit ago. He's hungry.
And I'm sorry, ladies. I gotta say real quick. I'm sorry, ladies, but James is taken
by your daughter,
by Olivia. They are betrothed to wed to marry in 40 years.
Oh, before I go, I do have to say something really quick. If you listen to us, you should know that we're from Arizona. My father-in-law is a blasphemous Arizona. My father-in-law is a blasphemous Arizonan and wanted to put this kid in a Cowboys jersey, and I said, "Don't you dare! He's a Cardinal."
I'm proud of you
through and through. Okay,
I've never had a more prouder moment. I've never had. There's a picture, and I'll show it here one of these days. My uncle buys me I was maybe 2. My uncle buys me a Dallas Cowboys jersey, and I'm literally picking it up and throwing it across the room. There's a picture of me holding this Dallas Cowboys jersey and looking at it with such disgust. Like, why the hell would you buy me this? And mind you, the Cardinals were not in the state yet.
But
I
true,
still knew
they came in '88.
Yeah, I still knew inherently that this was not my future.
Well, that's why I don't fault my father-in-law as much, because he's been here for so long. Back when it was basically the Niners or the Cowboys, and he's just kind of stuck with it. Anyway, I said I was going to go, and then I kept talking. I'll talk to you later. Call me when you're done.
Okay. Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Or bye.
Bye.
So I don't think there's much more to talk about except the Marvel announced a new series 616, Marvel 616. That's going to be coming out. I'm not sure if it's coming out on Disney Plus or what. But was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Tyler?
No, I don't know what 616 is about.
So Marvel 616 is a documentary series. It's going to go into the it's just going to go into Marvel Comics essentially. So it's but right, Matt, it's a documentary. Type quickly, please. But he says yes, it is coming on Disney Plus. But that was announced. They did like a sneak peek trailer or something like that.
One thing I did have. Shoot. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it's a documentary series on Disney Plus, so I was correct. But I mean, as far as announcements, I mean, the first day of Comic-Con was a lot of like cooking videos and like just like general conversation videos. The second day, a lot of the same thing. But today, I think, was the real meat because you had the Kevin Smith interview and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, if you haven't been checking out the panels on Comic-Con at Home, it's really easy. You just go to YouTube, type Comic-Con at Home, and they have playlists listed by each day. You can also go to the Comic-Con International website and set up an account, and you can actually have reminders set for when some of these shows that you're interested in watching are coming on. But in the meantime, please go check out Jack O'Halloran's book, Family Legacy. It's available on Amazon and Kindle. It's so far, yesterday was the real meat, Matt says so. But it so far I've been reading it. It's a fantastic book, so go check it out. Go check out Absolute Geek Podcast. They're good friends of ours, and Matt is always fully animated in our chat, so we really appreciate him. And send Max a Facebook message about telling him how cute his baby is. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. And then check out Couch Crunchers on Facebook, couchcrunchers.com. We got a lot of articles been posting up lately. And we had a special podcast episode released just a couple of days ago about the new Final Fantasy remake, special one-off podcast episode. So go check out the world of Couch Crunchers, check out the world of Absolute Geek and Jack O'Halloran. And until next time, keep on geeking on.